The true history. Memory. Stabilization. Exploration. The period of awakening, first glances, ignorance, and attempts at understanding had long passed. For quite some time, everything had settled into its proper place. Species affiliation was determined. Communication was no longer a problem. A hierarchy had formed naturally. At the very top of the entire planetary community stood the species called the Ginu. This dependence arose spontaneously, thanks to their natural capacity for leadership, stemming from their intelligence. The Ginu was the quickest to comprehend what he himself was, as well as what his surroundings were, living and non-living. He possessed an above-average ability to utilize the connection of consciousness with the Creator. His extraordinary development was aided by his skillful posing of questions. This, in turn, allowed him to obtain accurate answers, which stimulated his growth. The conversations he held were a matter of asking questions of himself. Although he himself did not know it, he was, after all, a part of consciousness which knew the answer to every question. He spent entire days seeking knowledge. It is possible that this very thing gave him an advantage in spiritual development over others. All other species made more errors on the path of spiritual growth. This merely meant walking more slowly in the Ginu's footsteps. However, regardless of the level of development, every life was treated equally. There were no more important existences, nor any of no significance. It is also worth mentioning that no being had activated a need for power, hatred, or a tendency towards violence. The Creator left such behaviors to them to develop independently, or not. Spiritual evolution, after all, did not have to go in only one direction, though for now it remained as such. The Ginu pondered whether he should be a species ruling over others. Given his knowledge, which surpassed that of others by centuries, the question was perhaps difficult, as it involved building dependencies that could lead to conflict. However, he found a middle ground and decided differently. The entire Ginu family was to become mentors for others. They were to subtly nudge others towards enlightenment. Without imposition, without managing the world, they wanted to be a positive engine for the development of the entire community, whom they treated as their brothers. The planet had been experiencing flourishing from the very beginning. Lush, beautiful vegetation, the diversity of beings that cared for it, all of this was something extraordinary. When the inhabitants began to act consciously, they started exploring the planet. That's when they reached the river's mouth, called the funnel. Approaching it was like a beach, much sand around, and on one side, water flowed into the earth's interior. It wasn't an ordinary hole in the sand. The whole thing looked like an entrance to some cavern. From its interior came the sounds of life, birdsong, the rustle of wind. It was something fascinating. Curiosity began to intensify. The first to volunteer for the discovery of the second world was a Due-leg, the second most developed species on the planet. Together with the Ginu, they descended into the depths of the cavern, from which the light of day shone, inviting. They weren't afraid. That feeling was not yet known. Curiosity was stronger. Besides, there were no signs that anything there posed a threat. In truth, as mentioned earlier, no one knew of bad behaviors or feelings. Their pure souls could not be afraid. After a few days, they returned with news for those who had remained on the surface. At the foot of the mountain, a meeting was convened for all who wished to hear them. The Due-leg undertook to tell of what had transpired. "My loved ones," something marvelous has happened, something that could enrich our community even more. As you know, together with the Ginu, we descended into the cavern in search of the source of the beautiful sounds coming from its interior. When we went deep, walking along the river, which guided us like a leader, our eyes beheld something extraordinary. A new world, vast, full of wondrous greenery, flowers, and large birds. No one reacted to our presence, as if we were acquaintances, perhaps neighbors, as if they were waiting for us. We felt at home there, especially since we met several species known to us, which had accidentally found themselves there during the first period of getting to know our planet. We did not see the end of this land. The light did not come from plants, as it does with us. There the light was a ceiling evenly illuminating every place. During our entire stay, night never once fell there. At this moment the Ginu stood up. This world is teeming with life. It exists parallel to ours. It is full of peace, where everyone lives in harmony, just like us. After a longer period of wandering, we were greeted by a group of lazy, lounging birds, enormous, with long tails, great talons, and beaks. Despite a rather fearsome appearance, they were like all other animals, friendly. I quickly realized that they were my counterpart in this world. Their cheerful disposition stemmed from a positive and mature approach to their surroundings. We were invited to live among them. They want me to return with friends. This will be the subject of agreements between representatives of all species living in our part of the planet. I will convene that meeting tomorrow. Decision, and so it happened. Representatives of most species came to the meeting. Some decided they would not relocate. They were fine where they were. The Ginu proposed that each species wishing to get to know the new world should select from among themselves a few representatives, ideally forming no more than a few families. He also noted that everyone would be able to return if they so decided. Less than half of the species volunteered to move. Everyone was curious about the unknown, but not necessarily ready to leave what they already knew well, their space and their kin. Families, species discussed this among themselves, which was proper, because it was to be their own decision. Some had no desire for exploration or to leave their family. Others felt that destiny awaited them in the place where they lived. The Ginu was pleased with his brother's decision, because he knew that a visitation of the new world by a huge group could lead to a certain strain. He did not want to introduce sudden changes into an ecosystem that was only just getting a chance to know them. He himself had also seen only a part of that place, which is why detailed acquaintance should precede any larger actions. At the conclusion of the gathering, he informed everyone that before the willing embarked on their journey of life, he himself must return once more to the new world. He stated that he should obtain consent now that he knew exactly how many of them had decided to move. He also intended to invite their representatives to get to know his world. And so it happened. The Ginu set out on his journey, this time alone. When he reached his destination, he encountered the Boldiki again, the great birds. This time they were even more pleased with his visit. They suspected he had good news. It seemed they were truly curious about the newcomers, and would gladly welcome them among themselves. The Ginu gave them an account of the meeting and his brother's decision. During this conversation, the Boldiki surprised him. One of them, who was directly involved in the conversation, switched to telepathic speech. The Ginu didn't know what was happening when he heard voices in his head. He was surprised again when he received an answer to what he thought. This mode of communication made him realize that he had such a possibility about which he hadn't even known it existed. The birds told him that in their realm, only birds could do this at the moment. In the near future, other species would join this group as well. Their development was beginning to enter new levels. The next thing he learned from the Boldiki was the fact that the world above the funnel had been known to them from the very beginning. During the exploration of the world that was home to all, some species had descended downward towards the light shining beneath the flowing water. There they discovered something like an extension of the homeland. They decided to settle there. Despite the passage of time, they had not forgotten where they came from, what they had left behind. They were waiting for the first meeting with their brothers from above at their own home. They wanted to give time to those living on the surface for development, so that the meeting with aliens would not unsettle them. Finally, the conversation came to an end. They agreed on when the new inhabitants would arrive and, after farewells, parted ways. Preparations. The Ginu gave all those willing to move 10 days to reconsider and confirm their desire to relocate. After that time, they received another 10 days to prepare for the journey. This time everyone spent in the company of their closest ones, remembering that they would always be able to return. 2 days before leaving their part of the world, they gathered to quietly recall their entire life, all moments and interactions, how they awakened to life, how they met and became family. The first smile, touch, and word